What's up everybody? I hope you're doing well. For today's video, I just felt inspired, I guess, to take a look at some of your comments in my recent videos and respond to some of them. I will blur out the usernames of who left the comment. I just don't want to put people on blast. For a lot of my videos recently, I've been releasing two versions of the video. One, this kind of standard version that you typically see, and then a second longer version that sometimes runs a little bit more like a podcast. It's less edited, less produced. And I thought, you know what? Why don't I go ahead and officially just launch some of those as podcasts. This video is going to be the first one where I offer the longer form content over in the podcast tab. If you go to my channel page and click on podcasts, you can find it in there. I've also linked to it below if you prefer the longer form version of my videos. But here we go. This is the short form version. From my most recent video, which was responding to your questions while I was kind of doing like a travel vlog situation, here's a comment. It was so nice to be part of that train ride and your visit to that cute little California community. Thank you, I'm glad you felt that way. Maybe travel videos are your next calling? Probably not. I totally understand the importance of dispelling the myth about the longer in the field, the more effective you are. However, I think that's been overemphasized. I understand for new grads that's probably reassuring, but I can say for sure that experience allows you to get comfortable with different scenarios and client reactions, which helps stay grounded when doing tough work. I also think that this emphasis can lead to ageism, which we've got a ton of in society, sure, for sure. Thank you for this comment, first of all, and I appreciate the nuance in it. First, I'll say they started by saying this seems overemphasized, this idea that folks who are newer in the field are more effective, which is an interesting perspective because that's actually something that I didn't hear until like a few months ago. So if it is overemphasized, I'm not in the bubble where that's getting overemphasized. Maybe I just missed that memo, or maybe nowadays it is getting more overemphasized. But I appreciate the rest of this. Understand for new grads, it's probably reassuring, but I can say for sure that experience allows you to get comfortable with different scenarios and client reactions. I completely agree with that. Marie, today compared to when I was first licensed, and certainly compared to when I first started seeing therapy clients as a practicum student in grad school, I mean, I am way more comfortable. And then the next point this person makes, I also think that this emphasis can lead to ageism, which we've got a ton of in society. Thank you for pointing that out. Agreed, and I am still relatively young. So I am the one that's benefiting in many ways by making this statement that earlier in our career we're more effective, and I would never want that statement to create a scenario where somebody who's been in the field for a long time to feel like all of their work, all of their wisdom, all of their efforts are null, because that's absolutely not true. Thank you for that point. Okay, next question. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself since I'm not even an intern yet, but I know burnout is an expected issue for counselors and their clients. I have one question. Suppose someone does not have the resources to take a break. What advice would you give them? What good resources are out there on burnout recovery? There was actually another comment thread that I'm not gonna read out loud in today's video where one commenter was saying, you know, we're ethically required when we're burned out to step away and take a break. And then somebody responded saying like, hey, not everyone has the luxury of taking a break, which I so empathize with. And often, like, if you're in a position of burnout, you're probably burned out because you didn't feel like you could take a break. If it felt accessible financially and otherwise to take a break from your work, maybe you would have done so earlier and kind of skipped the whole burnout thing. Burnout is so common, and I am assuming that a big reason for that is because it's so financially difficult for so many therapists that it feels like I have to keep showing up to work in order to pay my bills. But to answer the question, you know, if somebody doesn't have the resources to take a break, what advice would you give them? I mean, I'll reiterate some of what I said in the video, that it would be really helpful to identify at least the source or sources of the burnout. And so even if you can't take a break from your work altogether, can you at least make some changes to wherever the source is from? So if it's, you know, working with a certain, you know, presenting issue, maybe is kind of causing some degree of secondary trauma for you, or, you know, whatever it might be. And if you can shift the types of folks that you can work with, even if it's the same number of folks on your caseload or whatever it might be, make those changes. Or if it's something about, you know, the environment you're working in, is there anything you can change about that? I mean, it's nuanced because everyone's in a different situation, but I hope you can feel empowered to try to look for those and make changes, at least try some changes to see if it has any benefit for you in your burnout recovery. Let's take a look at one more comment from this video. It was nice to hear about effectiveness as baby therapists. So somebody who's kind of on the other take of what we heard about earlier. I wonder if you would do a video about choosing a pay scale as a new private practice therapist. I found that it can sometimes feel like I'm not allowed to charge as much or more than people with more experience. But if I followed that, my practice would just not be sustainable with what it costs to live here as a younger adult who is trying to survive in this economy. I have no desire to overcharge anyone and really want therapy to be affordable. In fact, this is an area I could see myself being an activist in the future. Amen. More power to you. I do want to be able to sustainably be a therapist for many years to come. Yes, please. That is my motivation to charge what is reasonable for me to live in my area. Anyhow, sorry for the rant. It's just been a bit stressful. I've definitely lowered my prices some because I felt like I was being corrected by another seasoned therapist for charging a higher rate than her for a specialty method we both offer that is a longer service. Wow. Whew. I basically prorated this service based on my normal cost, and she just charges the same amount. There are so many layers to this comment. First of all, I am so sorry that you were corrected by somebody else for charging what you charge. As therapists, I don't think we have the right to correct other therapists about what they charge. Someone has the freedom to charge what they charge, and you have the freedom to charge what you charge. And if somebody else is charging more than you for the same service that you've been doing for longer, that is their choice. We don't know the details of a person's choices and financial situations, so it's not appropriate to offer commentary about what you think somebody else should charge. I'm just thinking of in my area, for example, I live in a particularly expensive area. If you've been living here for a really long time, let's say you're a homeowner and you bought your house 10 years ago, 20 years ago, your monthly mortgage might be something like $3,000 or $2,000 a month. But if you moved into this area in the last couple of years and you're trying to buy a house, the monthly mortgage that you're looking at is probably something more like $5,000. It could easily be $8,500 for a modest home. So when you think of it that way, to say, well, how does it feel reasonable for the person who maybe bought their home when the market was totally different to comment to the younger person who maybe is in an earlier unstable phase of their finances to say, well, you can't charge that much. Maybe that's what that person needs to charge in order to even come close to the same cash flow that you might have because your housing expenses are so much lower. Or maybe you're partnered with somebody who is able to jointly offer kind of financial stability in a way that somebody else might not have access to. Or maybe this person is carrying debt to a degree that you don't have, or something like that. So there's a slew of things. Maybe this person is financially caregiving for their loved one. I mean, there's a slew of very compassionate reasons why somebody might choose to charge potentially a lot more than somebody else for the same service and not have ill intentions for it. So I'm so sorry that that happened to you, commenter, that somebody corrected you. Okay, let's move on to a different video. We're gonna take a look at the video where I gave feedback on some of y'all's websites, which I really enjoyed making that video, and you can look forward to more videos coming as a series of that. Somebody commented on the video, how much self-disclosure would be appropriate on the website? Could you share an example? Thank you for all the content, by the way. Thank you for watching. Great question. This comes up a lot in the comments of my website course as well, because I'm basically advocating to say that some amount of self-disclosure is incredibly useful when it comes to building trust with potential clients. But how much self-disclosure would be appropriate on the website? It depends. The questions that I ask start with, well, what's your comfort level of how much you want to self-disclose? If you don't want to self-disclose, don't self-disclose. The next thing to think through is what sort of self-disclosure could benefit potential clients, especially in helping them build trust with you. And then the third question that I would ask is, what kind of boundary level your clients and ideal potential clients have. If you're working with a group of folks who has trouble containing boundaries and holding boundaries, then it can be really helpful for you to hold your boundaries and not self-disclose so much. But even with that said, if let's say like all three of those variables are kind of constrictive, like you don't feel comfortable self-disclosing, potential clients don't need to hear that much of your own story in order to build trust, and also potential clients have trouble holding boundaries and they need you to hold the boundaries more so, it's still appropriate to leverage self-disclosure, and I'm using air quotes because I mean it in a less traditional way. It might look like, over the years of work that I've done, I've come to learn the value of, I've changed, I've grown, I've reflected. You're acknowledging yourself as a human within the context of the work that you do, even if it's not telling anything about yourself at all. It could just be, hey, this is something that I'm really passionate about through my own life experience. You don't have to tell anything about your life experience. So there's ways to still self-disclose while being highly contained if that's what's most appropriate. It's only a couple videos back that I made the last week's video was hard video, where I was commenting about how we speak to each other as therapists, inspired by the video that I made about Freud. People had a lot of things to say in the comments there, actually wildly supportive. Let me go on a sidebar and just acknowledge just how supportive so many of you are. Like the emails that came flooding, like I just was blown away. But let's dig into this. I imagine I'm not going to get to all of these comments, except maybe in the podcast version of this. So let's just see what we find. Okay, so this one is like a little mini comment thread. The first person says, I think you would have gotten a much different response in a platform like PESI, or do people say PESI? I'm assuming they're referring to the online education platform for therapists, I assume, where you know people are actually therapists. I'd be surprised if most of the extreme comments are really from therapists. Thanks for sharing this. And then somebody responds, try looking at therapists' social media, especially those attempting to educate therapists in any way, and you'll see incredibly judgmental viewpoints and black and white thinking. There are many therapists that seem as if they haven't done any personal work for themselves and don't have any insight into their own actions. Whew, I mean, that follow-up comment feels harsh, especially the second sentence saying that they haven't done any personal work. I think most therapists have at least attempted to do personal work, and the question is kind of how effective that personal work is. As I read that first comment, I thought, no, I'm pretty sure these are therapists that are offering some more harsh feedback. So then this follow-up commenter is saying, like, hey, if you look at therapists on social media, especially those attempting to educate therapists anyway, you'll see judgmental viewpoints and black and white thinking. And though this isn't across the board in any way, I have been surprised in my own experiences, especially on social media, but also in person, for just how harsh therapists can be towards each other. And there's something about the framing of it, because we can offer correction to each other. And I think obviously we're touching on like ethical, HIPAA, big capital N no-nos. It's a good idea to give feedback to each other so that we can make sure we're providing best care for our clients. But there's a way to do it. And I have definitely taken the like, you should know better, shame on you type approach. I don't think I use the phrase shame on you. I have seen people use that phrase, but kind of that undertone, like you should have known that. We should all know that. When I've had that reaction, it's coming from a space of like projecting how we see ourselves. And I always held myself to this expectation and standard of like, I can never make an ethical violation. I can never make a HIPAA violation. If I missed the memo on one of these things, I thought I was doing things right, but I was wrong. Well, that's on me. I really missed the boat and I should have known better. And so I had that perspective on myself. So if I saw somebody else miss something that I was aware of, I completely projected the same reaction on them. So in my mind, in the moment, when I'm leaving my black and white comment on social media or in group supervision or case consultation and places like that where I definitely did that in the past, it was because I spoke to myself like that in my own internal world. So I think it's quite possible that if we could find a way to be much kinder about how we speak to ourselves internally about these things, then it would be much more accessible to be more compassionate and kinder, but still direct and corrective in how we speak to each other. The next comment says, yeah, let's agree to disagree. It's okay to have different opinions, of course. Often people think that in order to have a good relationship, you should agree on everything, and if you don't, you're enemies. I personally do not think so. Just be respectful and be willing to tolerate that someone else may have a different perspective. Could it be that some people suppress their anger in real life, trying to always be nice and being afraid to express a disagreement or to argue, and when it comes out disagreeing with someone online, a person they will never meet, all the suppressed anger came out? That's an interesting take. I'm not sure. Marie, I enjoy your videos. I think you are brave to say what you think. Thank you. I often avoid sharing what I think because I am afraid. That's why I chose, that last line is why I chose this comment as one to kind of respond to. That is my deepest fear. Not that I'm going to shut my mouth because I'm afraid of criticism, but like everyone's going to shut their mouth because they're afraid of criticism. In my opinion, it's the people who are most afraid to share that have the most valuable things to say. And we could take that on a like more systemic scale. Like, you know, it's often women's voices who are silenced over men, or who are more afraid to speak. It's often, you know, BIPOC folks who are silenced over others. I mean, like on and on and on. I would love it if we could, for those who are comfortable sharing their voices, and I'll include myself in that mix, if we could find ways to be very compassionate while clear and opinionated and all of those things, but compassionate, acknowledging the humanity of the other people that we're speaking to in how we offer our commentary, whether it's online or in person, then that might help people who feel afraid to speak feel more capable of voicing their opinion. And those are the voices that we need to listen to. So thank you for that comment. Whew. There was a lot of stuff in there. I hope it's okay that I made this style of video. This is just what I felt like making today. Part of my goal in sharing this is, you know, just want to humanize, like there's a real human leaving the comment. I'm a real human reading your comment and responding back to your comments. So I hope you enjoyed it. And before we close, I'd like to thank TherapyNotes.com for sponsoring this video. TherapyNotes helps with all of your practice management needs, from scheduling to notes to billing, and a HIPAA-secure telehealth platform, and so much more. If you'd like to check out TherapyNotes, you can get 2 months to try it for free with no commitment just by clicking the link in the description of this video. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. Whether you've commented before, you've never commented, this is the first video you've ever seen, thanks for being here. I appreciate you, and wherever you're at in life, whatever you got going on, from one therapist to another, I wish you well.